Hey everyone, I wanted to go over the new and extremely exciting news that we have not for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, but for Monster Hunter 6, Monster Hunter World 2, Monster Hunter Paradise, or whatever the hell Capcom ends up calling their next mainline game. And that is the fact that almost out of nowhere, pretty much at the end of 2022, Ryoso Sugimoto, the producer for the Monster Hunter series, has introduced the notion that they are going to be talking about the next mainline game specifically during Tokyo Game Show in 2023. Remember that Tokyo Game Show is the equivalent of like E3 but for Japan. That takes place somewhere around September. I believe it's scheduled to be September 21st, through the 23rd is when it's supposed to be taking place of next year. We usually end up getting digital presentations for plenty of Japanese publishers and developers. And of course, they have like a physical presence as well, a show floor where people get to go test things out. So this pretty much kind of crossed my feed originally from a couple of different articles from a couple of differently, let's say, not necessarily well-known website. There was a tudocellular.com that posted an article. Monster Hunter's new game may be announced during Tokyo Game Show 2023. There was a website article from Sportskeeda. Monster Hunter 6 is expected to get announced during Tokyo Game Show 2023. Then there was an Every IT, I believe this is an Italian website that mentions Monster Hunter Paradise at Tokyo Game Show 2023. And of course, I believe that's Italian. I'm not necessarily sure. And there was another website, GN24 Video Game News. Capcom's Ryoso Sugimoto says there's hope for Tokyo Game Show. Will there be a new Monster Hunter? But I think the one that explained it a little bit better, and this is the one that we're going to be using as the basis of this original kind of like news breaking, is WCCF Tech. They have kind of covered news about video gaming before. I've seen them multiple times, and they mentioned the next Monster may be announced during Tokyo Game Show 2023. And essentially, when you read the actual article, we're not going to be doing most of that. They mentioned that speaking with Famitsu as part of the magazine's usual end-of-the-year features, series producer Ryoso Sugimoto commented on what they will be focusing on the Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak and upcoming updates this winter and spring. And essentially, they provide a link to the Famitsu article. And this is basically, if you don't necessarily know, if you don't know what Famitsu is kind of like IGN of Japan, but like actually good. So they like actually let developers talk, and they actually let them provide details, and they're not just providing you with regurgitated opinions from pundits who actually think they know more about games than you do as an actual gamer. So essentially, Famitsu does a pretty good job covering video games for Japanese outlets. In this specific article that they did, they discussed with 141 different developers essentially what are their hopes for the new year. I believe last year they covered a similar video where I discussed Ryoso Sugimoto's notes, and at the time, director Ichinose of Base Monster Hunter Rise, as they were teasing the potential DLC introduction of essentially Sunbreak for Monster Hunter Rise. Well, this time around, what they do is that they discuss a couple of questions with Yoshitake Suzuki. Of course, this is the director of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, and of course, Capcom's producer Ryoso Sugimoto. So the quotes that we're going to be going over, and the reason why all of these articles are going to be posted here out of nowhere, is essentially from this specific Famitsu interviews that were posted for like an end year type of quotes type thing. This was posted originally on the 27th of December, but essentially I guess someone translated a couple of the quotes, and almost all these articles started to come out on December 29th. This video is going to be going up on the 30th, so that's pretty much the timeline on this. And of course, I wanted to provide a quick little context as to how this is all kind of developing, even as I'm being reported on this. I'm sure more information will be coming out soon after. So essentially, both director Suzuki and Ryoso Sugimoto are specifically asked 4 different questions. I believe they are the same questions for each one of the developers. When it came to Yoshitake Suzuki, the director of Sunbreak, they asked him, what are the key things for him to focus on 2023? He mentions growth and challenges. They ask him what are his ambitions for 2023. And he mentions that in 2022, they released Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, with the support of many development staff members, and we're grateful for the support of many users. In 2023, we will steadily continue to make games while taking on new challenges. They ask him if they have any recent supports to mention. He says that Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak will continue to receive free title updates. In the remaining updates, we will do our best so that all users can have fun, so please look forward to it. And the last question that they asked Director Suzuki is that what are the things to watch in 2023 or entertainment works, or simply just things that he wants to do. He mentions that recently he's been lacking entertainment in his life, so he would like to actively watch movies. Personally, he has high hopes for the Kamen Rider and Marvel movies and the new Indiana Jones film and Paddington films. I'm thinking he's talking about Paddington Bear. I'm not sure if that's like a movie thing or whatever, but I know that's like a children's show, I think. So that is specifically what he mentioned. So these articles are not necessarily focused on Yoshitake Suzuki mentioning that he wants to see Indiana Jones movies or Marvel. The quote that all these articles are focusing on is the quote from Ryoso Sugimoto, specifically when talking about the questions that they asked him. So they asked him the first questions. What are some of the things he wants to focus on in 2023? He mentions continuation and growth. So they asked him what are his ambitions for 2023. He says that he hasn't been able to go to events in the past few years, so I hope to be able to go to as many events as possible in 2023, including overseas. And that is where the hints begin to kind of drop. They ask him what are some recent reports or things he wishes to talk about. He mentions that we have already announced that we are planning free title updates for Monster Hunter Rise for the winter and the spring of 2023. I had someone in the comments ask me just recently if February for the release of the next free title update actually meant 2023 or like 2024 for some reason. I'm not sure if they were confused, but yes, February 2023 is the next free title update. Spring presumably means somewhere around April or May, presumably for the 5th title update. Of course, there is some suggestion already there might be a 6th one, but of course Capcom hasn't revealed that just yet. He does specifically mention please look forward to more and further information. And the last question that they ask him, and this is the one that I think got everyone riled up, it says things to watch in 2023 or some of the entertainment works. And he just says Tokyo Game Show 2023. So he says basically if you want to pay attention to something that Capcom is doing, specifically maybe for the Monster Hunter series, pay attention to Tokyo Game Show 2023 as something or some things might actually be shown there. Now, there's a lot of context to kind of like derive from that because, of course, before Tokyo Game Show happens, which again takes place in September, I believe September 21st through the 23rd of 2023, E3 will have happened by then. I believe E3 is somewhere around middle of June, I want to say. Then Gamescom, which is the equivalent of E3, but like for European gamers, I believe that happens, the following month or August, maybe. I think it's August or like July, somewhere around there. So that would have been two massive events. I think everyone would probably acknowledge that, even though you may not necessarily be a big fan of E3, but it does still draw the most amount of eyes. Like every single presentation for E3 has crushed anything Tokyo Game Show has presented, anything Gamescom has done, and maybe even the Game Awards at that point, which happened in December, of course. I believe we just had the Game Awards a couple of weeks ago. So like usually E3 is like the peak of like viewership when it comes to video game presentations. And if Capcom was to reveal, let's say Monster Hunter 6, Monster Hunter World 2, Monster Hunter Paradise, again, the name doesn't necessarily matter, it's just the idea of the next mainline game. If they were to reveal something, most likely you would imagine that they're going to do it at E3. But then it falls into that same category. This is something that has been a little bit of a discussion point that I've brought up multiple times for my viewers. And that is the fact that, kind of like one of the articles mentions, I believe the WCCF Tech article does mention on the bottom of it. I didn't cover it because it's just, to me, it's common knowledge, but maybe for the viewers, it's not necessarily common knowledge. Sunbreak is still going to be getting updates released up until the spring. So we're talking, again, April, maybe even May. Why would they actually go ahead and reveal a mainline game while Sunbreak, still on the Nintendo Switch and PC, might be still getting updates? Then at the same time, you have the fact that on the same spring period, PlayStation and Xbox, now Windows, are getting Sunbreak dropped somewhere around the time that the 5th free title update drops on the Nintendo Switch and Steam, and then Sunbreak's first free title update, or the base game, drops on PlayStation and Xbox around that time. We don't expect that all the free title updates will be available on day one when Sunbreak drops on PlayStation and Xbox, unless Capcom does something completely drastic. That hasn't necessarily been the case, but they might just do that. So they might actually go ahead and drop Sunbreak on PlayStation and Xbox, and day one, it gets free title update 1 all the way through 5. And that would be amazing for the content for those players, specifically if we're playing on Game Pass. But if they don't necessarily do that, so now we have to wait for a staggered release of free title updates for PlayStation and Xbox. And all that time, while players on Xbox and PlayStation may be happy that they're playing that version, Nintendo Switch and PC Steam players are already just kind of done with the game because they already got all the content that they could have wanted. So we're not expecting anything new unless, again, a 6th free title update is added. So by that point, the discussion of like, okay, well, when is the next mainline game coming begins to kind of chirp up. And that is where we would be at that point in time. So Tokyo Game Show does line up relatively well if Capcom does decide to even stagger a little bit or drop all the free title updates on PlayStation and Xbox at the same time, or at the very least throughout the summer. And then you see on September, Tokyo Game Show, Capcom say, hey, here's a teaser for the next mainline Monster Hunter game. Whatever they end up calling it, of course, it's still going to be Generation 6. That is, they're not going to continue Generation 5. That is what Rise and Sunbreak were. So Generation 6 will be a brand new sticking point, a brand new idea, a brand new thing. This is what the notion of Paradise was. When I covered our most recent video that I made about Paradise, people were still saying in the comments that that was still from the whole Discord reveal thing, and that wasn't even talking about that. I was talking about like different quotes and different articles reporting on different news, but people were like stuck on the fact that Paradise was just kind of like some fake news from Discord, and that was not the case at all. So I'm still not burying the notion that Paradise might still actually be the name of it, because well, there's things pointing in the right direction for that. But still, at the end of the day, whatever they end up calling it, whatever it ends up being, presumably it will be a current gen game only. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC, of course. Nintendo Switch probably will be left on the side, as maybe even a cloud version will release. But if they have any sort of discussions with Nintendo, presumably a brand new system would be in the works by then. And there is some sort of discussion as of recently that from Digital Foundry, I believe, that there was a potential of a Switch Pro being released, but they canned it. They said no. And now just the next mainline Switch will be dropping maybe 2024. So, if they were to release or reveal, at Tokyo Game Show 2023, the next mainline Monster Hunter game, and then it just happens to drop in 2024 around the time that the next Switch ends up releasing, well, there you go. It may not obviously be a Switch exclusive, of course. It will just be, PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, or Nintendo if you want to look at it that way, and of course, PC as well. So that's where we are right now with all of this. End of the year news, probably the most interesting one out of at the end of the day. Huge shout out to Famitsu for putting out, of course, these interesting developer quotes. Obviously, WCCF Tech for some of the information, and the other outlets as well. They'll all be linked in the video description below. I will mention two quick specific things before I close out this video, since it's dragged on a little bit long enough as it is. And if you're still watching, thank you so much. I do appreciate all the support of this year, 2022. My channel has been gradually and steadily growing, and I appreciate all the support that I get. And I'm really grateful to be able to bring not just news to everyone, since this is a news channel, not necessarily just for Monster Hunter, but I just cover Nintendo Switch news as well. And I cover games that interest me. I'm not necessarily covering things for clicks or views or anything like that. I cover games that catch my attention. Monster Hunter just happens to be one of my most favorite franchises, period. Therefore, I talk about it the most. But of course, at the end of the day, I'm just no different than anyone else. And I have my specific game likes, and Monster Hunter just seems to be one of those. So thank you everyone for the support. Hope you have a brand new, happy, exciting 2023. And if you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.